Overrated episode 12 with a former movie star, and we're going to talk about his walk of fame, or walk to fame. And I guess, let's start with a question: what did you actually do for Movistar?
Um, Actually, I was signed as an analyst for Movistar Riders, and that was my position from the beginning to the end. I had to adapt at some point in the middle of the contenders on the coaching position, and that's pretty much it. Like, I was more of a coach analyst. I was doing the overall thing for the roster, the psychological in-game data stuff, and I was adapting to sense that is a really good duo for me. And that was my first experience to have a coaching team, like a coach and analyst, two guys that are actually working over some stuff. And that was really good, yeah. But I was more of an analyst and a coach. I don't know to explain it, but you got my point.
Yeah, yeah. So let's actually go to your origins. So, how did you get into Overwatch? Were you one of those players that got better early, or did you get it on release, or what was it?
I got on the open beta. Like, I tried it. I was still on League of Legends. I was a little semi-professional player back at the time, and I was really into Overwatch. I liked everything. I got the actual FPS I wanted, and at the same time a MOBA that was kind of similar to League of Legends. I knew that if I was working on it first as a player, I would get the deep stuff I wanted, still with the ult management, etc., the objective-centered game that I wanted. So it was really good, fast pace, and I wanted to get to it. I got as a player at the first, and in September 2016, I was like, okay, I take a year. I tried to make my dream come true, basically. And I got into a project named Deus with really good management staff, Elspawn and Monster, if I remember correctly. I trialed them. I got rejected because I didn't have the level for this. And they say, okay, I see you as a manager. Do you want to go staff? I said yes. I sacrificed my dream as a player to go over the coaching staff. I was still thinking about that in League of Legends, if I would go coach, etc. So I accepted it here, and I got a proposition in Gamers Origin, and I began my life as a coach, basically.
Okay. Do you think
Nice.
was there some because you're quite young still, right? You're 21 if I'm not mistaken.
21, that
21,
is.
yeah. So that's usually not the time when people start coaching. Coaching is like, okay, I had a very good career in esports. Now I have no other skills. Let me do something else in the scene,
That's
right? But
Yeah.
is there something why did you? Is it an issue with your skill set where you said, okay, I probably won't be a professional player, and I actually have the personality or something to coach?
This is a really good question because I think every coach at some point actually thought about how much work they put in the game, even as a player. And that was my type of personality back in League of Legends and Overwatch as well. I would do the administrative theory crafting stuff, and that's why I questioned myself back in the days of League of Legends if I should go over the staff thing. But as you mentioned, I was young, and I'm still young now. And moreover, this is more professional, previous professional player that go over the coaching staff position than young players with no backup. But I actually go through the manager's position at first. I would actually be contacted by Leaf. We would test over my skill set as a coach to see if I would actually at first coach him personally. We got a VODs from Gamers Origin. I got a bit eccentric and go in the general stuff, so over the team, and it was like, okay, let me take my colleague and we will go through the VODs together. And they were like, okay, we maybe want you to trial for Gamers Origin, basically. And my age, anything wouldn't be a problem for Leaf and the rest of the roster, and same for Movistar Riders. But still, this is really good to mention because even if I'm bad at the game, because this is a skill set thing as well, I wouldn't see myself as a really good player in League of Legends and neither Overwatch, even more Overwatch for the FPS thing. It's still about how much love I have to work hours a day, like hours and hours and hours over little things, administrative stuff, and all the things around the game. I'm more of an intellectual player than a mechanical, and I want to live my dream, but through the backstage, making players good in the mindset, good in the game, and see how happy they are, because that could be me. That could be me, and I was like, okay, I want to do this. I want to pursue the coach career, and that's why even now I want to go through the coaching position, because this is even the hardest but the best position for me in esports right now.
Yeah, and I think that will largely be important for the OWL, because I think the way the system is set up, eventually coaches will have to have more power than in other esports, because like I can't currently the most esports scenes are very much dominated by the players in a sense, because they are the ones to creating content. They're immediately there to do the PR. So if there's anything negative, like they bring all the attention. And if you don't have personalities as coaches, like we do, for instance, in soccer, like a Sir Alex Ferguson or something, right? These are household names. So I guess that will eventually develop. It's only just unfortunate that you came in a time where, coaches are really still underappreciated in the scene, aren't they?
Exactly. Like, even if people don't want to say that is true, in the early stage of the game, people were like, "Coach, what for?" And I was no, that was and pro. Everyone was like, "Okay, what is the use of a coach?" Because, and this is like legitimate. The game just been released in May, so
Yeah.
which players are the good call? Because people, for people minds, it was okay, this is a pro player actually, like Envy, Misfit, etc., that was really good at the game. If it's not a previous pro player, who can coach? No one. And it was like, okay, what is the use for a coach? No one can be good as a coach on the game. Months after, it was like, okay, coach is really good, we need coach in the team. And that was the same thing as Korea at some point. I remember in the World Cup, the first World Cup, it was like, yo, Korea is shit, Europe master race. And no, months after, it's like, oh, Korea is the best country in the world, we're gonna import Korea in NA, in Europe, etc. Like, this is basically the same thing over and over, and people will realize as well that coach, for me, in any game, is like the key part of a roster. And that's why I liked really hard Movistar Riders, because every player was so professional and so insightful over the game and outside of the game, and would appreciate my work, even if I was a no-name, even if I wasn't a pro player. I would just work over and over and over, and I would just performance based show them what I was as a coach, and I would say, okay, you're good, so we're gonna work with you, and we're gonna give you the key to make us better. And that's why every players in this team is like my best friend and my best player, and I wanted them to understand that I would do everything for them, basically.
Yeah. Were you with the team from the get go? So I'm looking at the. I'm actually going to show the viewers too at the Wikipedia page, and apparently the first match they played was in mid-January this year. Were you with them from that point on, or when did you join the team?
The moment I joined the team was the moment Sense told me if I was able to help them for the upcoming playoff on the Pete Championship. Because they were looking for an analyst, but they couldn't sign one back at the time. So I obviously said yes. I wanted to help them without any second thought, because I would like basically do a trial and maybe say, okay, you're gonna get me on the team. I wasn't like this. Kosti was a really good friend and a really good player that I coached back in Gamers Origin. I was really a really good fan of Logix and Dante, and I wanted to see the experience working with them and the rest of the roster as well. So I had them at early March, basically, like the 10 or the 13, something like that. Just 1 week before the playoff of the pitch championship.
Okay, yeah. So if we're looking at it, so obviously like the actual conclusion of the tournament was mid-April, but yeah, I guess it was around like you. Do you remember being with them for the
Yeah,
Go for Overwatch?
Yeah, that's true. Sorry, it was April. The 13 match was the moment I quit Gamers Origin. My bad.
Okay.
But yeah, what was your question? Sorry.
Do you remember being with them for the Go for Overwatch stuff? So, for instance, what's very interesting, and I think this is before Cyclones was actually like a big name in Europe. You played them in the monthly final of February, which was played in March because ESL. But yeah, it's the explosion. If we look at it, you're playing minor tournaments, right? Then you play like a final of a Go for Overwatch with, admittedly, like a pretty good team. Like Cyclones was obviously one of your rivals, I would say, over the time.
Exactly.
But then there's like you actually win Pit Europe. That's an insane result, right? Just seemingly out of nowhere.
Basically, yeah. Basically, the Go for the day of the Go for was the day when I quit Gamers Origin, and they actually got beaten 0-3 against Cyclone. So yeah, I came at the pit and we did the HND just after, and we actually won against Cyclone, which was a really good accomplishment for them because, as you say, they actually got beaten by them back in the Go4. And it was before the actual shuffle, right? Like, not the shuffle, but the poach on the players, if I remember correctly.
Was it hard at all? Because I think not a lot of people realize this, but this team came together. Like, half of them were the old Mouse Sports. And, like, to this day, like, yesterday I saw it in Pro Talk, where people were saying, like, a World Cup team is like 5 DPS and 1 tank. You know this meme, like, okay, that's the Movistar approach, right? Because you were essentially like 5 DPS players and a tank. How was the transition, and how did you decide who was going to play what?
I can't really answer that because I wasn't in the beginning of everything when they actually got into Movistar, etc. But I think the roster did well with roster changes because back in the days, it was something like Burix. They actually tried as well people on the tank position. So Winghaven, Kosti got through. They actually did a bit of roster changes, but at some point it was 5 DPS into this. But we actually got people like Logix, Dante, even Neptuno that could actually adapt really easily to things. When Swoosh is more on the projectile thing, and this is a really good Genji, let's be honest, and Fincy was like more about Zarya. He got a really bad time going over Soldier, but that was a really good experience working with Fincy because at some point, and I remember correctly on the pit, it was a monster Soldier. So even as a 5 DPS roster, they actually did well. Either in the roster changes, even in versatility, managing positioning, position on like DPS, flex, etc. They didn't have any issues. And I think it's more about how much they work together and how much synergy they had together as in the game or outside of the game. They managed so well. For me, it's like all the credit is given to them for me because they worked on everything at the beginning, and when I came, it was like all placed. You know, I didn't make any changes over that, so I can't really share the secret about it because I don't know myself. But I actually did it well.
And the obstacles
and
Movistar had to overcome were insane, right? So from the get-go, you have players from all types of different nations, right? Nobody actually has English as a mother tongue. If I'm, yeah, I don't think anyone has. Then
I don't think so.
then obviously the composition, the different play styles. Then you move into a gaming house somewhere in Madrid, and obviously we also know the AC memes, right? So for the longest time it was super hot there, like very hard to work under. Like how do you overcome all these obstacles? Is it just in a sense, like for instance, I wrote an article about Immortals having like a very strange formula that basically you see nowhere else. But I think Movistar might actually be even more ridiculous because of all these issues I mentioned. Is there anything that you can pinpoint?
Not really. Like, we already know the memes about the AC from Logix, most notably, and that was like the only thing, like the huge thing that the players needed. Like, there was issues to actually get an EC from what I heard from the players and the staff from Movistar. It was really hard to get an AC at this season, which was kind of weird because it's summer. But yeah, they got in big issues to get the AC, and it was the major problem because when you're actually in an apartment in a tiny room with eight people, 8 PCs, with the summer of Madrid, and as I mentioned earlier, I come from the south of France and I know what is summer, but Madrid is hell on earth. And when you actually get no AC with tons of PC, tons of people in that tiny room, I don't know how they managed to stay concentrated, etc. But they managed it till the gaming center was open, etc.
Yeah.
So I don't. I mean, that was a major problem back in the days.
And then there was obviously ridiculous hardship also for you, right? Because like it was I think they had another coach. Then obviously with the state Overwatch is in, it's always kind of hard to get funding. We see teams dropping. Eventually Movistar also had to drop their roster. Like the OWL reared its hat, and like I know for you it wasn't the easiest time either, because my understanding is that like getting a contract with a livable wage was actually very hard, wasn't it?
Yeah, true story. Like, I can't say much, but the contract obviously wasn't that good for me. And as I said earlier, I'm not that moved over money, etc. Like, as I say, I need to build myself, and I really like this roster. When I came to work for them, with them, and like, it was really good, and the passions drive me. And as you say, this is really hard to get a really good contract, so I had really no choices over this.
Mm-hmm.
Still, Movistar Riders tried to make things at least smoother for the team, but there was obviously issues of a staff to actually make the roster work good enough, and at some point we would get dropped because, as you mentioned, teams drop their roster. There's no conviction for organization to actually get other benefits in mediatical, economical way. Like, there's nothing you can get in Overwatch from organization point of view, for at least what I heard. So yeah, it wasn't a good timing, but I'm still really glad to work with the six, and those players were really kind with me. And this is my reward, at least, that wasn't mentioned on the contract. The reward from getting greeted by good players, work with them, and actually live the experience with them. Because still, I never did this thing before in esports. And that was a really great experience in overall, even in the good, but the bad things as well.
Yeah.
I'm not surprised to say things.
And I guess let's get to the reason why we actually came together, because you recently made a video on your struggle or your hardships that you faced, and some despicable Reddit troll had the audacity, like such like, oh, dude, that really like that was trigger level 10, right? So like had the audacity without any knowledge to say that you weren't doing your job, and obviously there were so much hardships, like you explained, with the AC and the players and the organization, and then you also like your personal troubles. And I think while it is probably always hard to pat yourself on the back, I guess you could do it by explaining how Movistar Riders ended up qualifying for the Takeover 2 tournament. Because all I know, like we hadn't ever talked about before I made my comments in that Reddit thread. All I knew about you was what I heard from your players. So they were singing high praises about you, and were like, yeah, he's actually like. And then they told me this story, which you maybe want to talk about, how they qualified for Takeover 2. So, do you want to talk about it? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I think it was the moment I came in Madrid, right?
Yes.
As a surprise for them. So, yeah, just I want to mention about the Reddit comments I got. For me, and I found both of the comments really interesting, because this is still a point of view, even if we can consider this as a troll. I didn't want to make this vlog or either this interview as a complaint for myself. Like, there's experiences, and I think every team's. I wanted to mention the controversy with the coach thing with Reinforce. Like, I think a lot of players, coaching staff, and teams are going through a lot of things. Like, the only team I can think without any problems is maybe United and Laser Kittens, but we can't know. We can't know, and this situation in Overwatch is really hard. But still, I can understand that people can, even against me, say that I didn't make my job properly, etc. Because I was still depressed after the contenders. And that's obviously a voice in your head saying, okay, you maybe could have done better. Because you involve 6 players that trust you, and this is really hard to bear. But this is what I liked, the challenge and everything.
Then again, dude, like you weren't brought to Takeover. What could you have done better there? Like again, like I'm bringing up the qualification stuff. So
yeah,
you went first in Pit, you went first in an HND Overwatch. So then it is my understanding that you weren't there for the first qualifier where you fell short to your perennial rivals Hammers. Like you always.
That was really huge. That was really huge because we wouldn't think about how Hammers would play this well against us. Moreover, they actually made a really cheesy composition. If I remember correctly, it was the 2 DPS hit scan composition, and we were at least the players in game couldn't actually think at how they would counter it. And in overall, Hammers did pretty well against us, and the people were like, okay, this is bad. We thought we would won the first qualifier, and now we have a last chance to go to Germany. So at this moment, I tried to work with them, and I tried with Sense to actually make a surprise with me coming the day of the actual last qualification for the takeover. So I would actually be with them, working with them, and if anything happened, I can give them insight, etc. Things I couldn't do back in my home. So yeah, basically it was a nice experience because actually the players was expecting it, me coming to Madrid, because I would actually see the thing through Sense DM. So they were like, "Oh, there's Daemon coming in. Okay, this is a nice surprise." But they would actually know it. So that was kind of funny because they told me that after our qualification and the final. But yeah, at first it was really funny. But yeah, I would work with them, go through the entire day with the team, etc. We would fight for, and was actually preparing against Hammers, and we actually won it, if I remember.
Yeah, 3-1,
I think 3-0,
yeah.
no,
3-1.
something like that. Okay, 3-1. Okay, yeah. So yeah, it was a really nice experience. I was really happy to think this thing with Tense, because I don't think I had a huge impact over them, but I think they were really happy to have one more getting on their back, actually walking over the teams and give them as much advice as possible, strategy, etc. Like we could work more than me being in home. And actually, the me coming in Movistar Riders, being in my home and not in Madrid, was kind of an issue as well, because everyone, included me, wanted to go to Madrid and work as an entity all together. But yeah, it was a really nice experience, and actually the players said to me that they were really happy that I was in Madrid. So
yeah,
I can be only happy over that.
Too. Yeah.
Do you think that if you were in takeover, you would have the same impact, like giving them the feedback that maybe they didn't get from other sources, or like finding ways there? Like, do you see that the team managing to overcome, for example, Cloud9, if they had some other input?
Like,
I thought you had the ability, personally. Like, I was expecting for another class between you and the United before, going to face one of you rogue again. So it was kind of a surprise that this thing happened there.
Yeah, takeover is bad memories, because I couldn't get into Germany, and I think everyone was kind of sad, but I was the one really sad about it, because that was the first.
That happens. I mean, it's okay.
Yeah, it was the first international experience, and back in Madrid when I came and we won the qualification, I even took a picture with them, and we would actually leak the fact I was in Movistar Riders, even if it wasn't announced. But I was like, okay, we're going to Germany. We would go together. And at the end, I was like, okay, that's not possible for kind of issues I won't mention in stream. But yeah, fact is, I don't really know if the impact would have been better, but it's true that at this moment.
Come on, man! Like, you won 3-2, or lost 3-2 against Cloud9. Like, basically, I don't know. Swoosh having a better breakfast would have probably pushed you across the finish line. You being there obviously would have helped. Like, don't lowball your impact.
Yeah, no, that's maybe true for the facts. Like, I knew Bishop, the kind of Bishop, and the other analysts, coach that were here, was like insane. I would see this through the game of Cloud9, because I was really impressed by how much skill and strategy, moreover, macro games, Cloud9 would manage and show to the roster, but to me as well, being my screen, as I was like, no, team, what are you doing? No, I was like really, really depressed, frustrated, but really impressed by the display of level in Takeover, and I was really sad about it. And I think everyone on the roster was kind of sad about it, but they needed to go through it.
Yeah.
You want to say something?
I have a question for you, because
sure.
Before Takeover, we had a discussion with Albion on the show here, and it's arguably, by many analysts and by many people, being told that this meta is like a soldier tracer meta, right? That Genji falls out of grace, that Genji is somehow like a subpar DPS right now. And we're going into Takeover. Personally, I never thought that. I always thought that Genji had potential to make kills one after the other with his dashes. His ultimate is really great in unlocking points. Like, even if you waste the ultimate, you can have the deflect, so you stay up, and therefore it's like you bait other things with the ultimate. And I was really surprised that all the teams in Takeover, they were fielding Gensis, like a top level Gensis. Like, I mean, I knew United had Cruz. I knew that, for example, who else? Like Rogue had Nico. He played Genji. But the other thing is, like, do you think that if the scrims with the teams you did in, or you were doing in Europe, like for example against United or against Hams or whatever, were forcing this kind of approach with Gensis, or was it something that you found like a strategy before that, like, that Genji has value and we're going to work with him? Like, this kind of, I'm kind of curious about.
I mean, yeah, this is a really good insight about it, because I don't really remember if the Soldier Tracer was actually popular at the days of Takeover, because it was I think maybe more late, but yeah, like the first problem with us at some point was like the Diva mentioned. because, as you know, we came to Pete as the last free DPS leader over E United. E United was like the top of what you can call a good team of a free DPS, and it was the same for us because we are the 5 DPS team. But like there was a really huge problem within the team because we were like, okay, is Diva that important? Is Soldier Tester effectively important? Even if we have and add this versatility over the team and we worked over good thing, Genji wasn't, and the fact of Soldier Tracer wasn't that bad of a problem. It was more about Diva, and that's why we actually, all the players and Sense, decided to go over Zarya on the contenders again, moreover against Cloud9, sorry, because players was still unsure, and by little work we had before the takeover, if Diva was actually what we would go through, because no one liked Diva. And it's the same for Movistar Riders, and no one wanted to go to 2-2-2. Even if I really wanted this, I tried to force this, but we had kind of issues to walk over it, and obviously it would mean that either Swoosh or Fincy would go over Diva. When you actually see back in the pits that Swoosh and Fincy were like really monster and nuts over this. So the composition thing on Movistar Riders at least was already a kind of a debate over the Diva, and moreover the actually changes of Genji being more and less impactful in games, but as well of the Diva, etc. So it's a really good question and insight, but that's true that we would go over Diva and those kind of things after the takeover, and moreover on the anticipation of contenders, most notably, at least.
Yeah. So, before, because this is the eve for maybe one of the biggest finals that will be played this year. If we think about it, the potential is there, I think. If we're looking at the big overall finals this year, I think the KDP and Lunatic High series has the potential to be the biggest final of the year, maybe? Maybe not for viewership, but certainly for level of play, right? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Like,
because,
yeah, go on, sorry.
Because like the Runaway Lunatic High series devolved into, lower levels of play because of the huge delays, and then it didn't feel really satisfying as an event. Then Apex Season 1 finals, yes, that was a huge deal that NBS won, but it also didn't feel as impactful because of the huge meta switches. And like, for me to feel that it was really impactful, it's like, okay, the two best teams of the actual entire tournament meet in the finals and just battle each other, and also are sort of head to head, and the surrounding circumstances are all right. And I think unless OGN tomorrow messes up the best of 7 format with some more karaoke or whatever you can put into a broadcast, right? Like, this has the potential to just not only because KDP and Lunatic High were the two best teams of Apex, and they are going to play in a best of 7 in the final, and I hope that the meta switches won't have too much to do with it. Though we have to say, like, the break was pretty huge between the semifinals and the actual finals. So, yeah, I think in that regard, it's going to be a fire series. Obviously, we can't expect the amount of viewership that we were going to see in like a World Cup final at BlizzCon, obviously. But like, as far as aficionados, of skilled Overwatch goes, like, tomorrow is your best event of the year, right?
Yeah, like the match tomorrow, I think no one actually, even if there's a lot of pros that actually would give their scent to big stars, like, I think the match tomorrow is gonna be interesting in like every major point, either for both teams at their composition, the fact that Guido came to the roster as well with the controversy over Warrior and etc. Like I'm looking forward to this match. I couldn't really follow Apex this much with the every match, and the fact that we got dropped by Movistar Riders, we need to go back to our country, etc. But yeah, like, and with contenders as well. Like, I think both teams right now has a chance to win clearly the final. It will depends on the mental, the work from both coaches as well, from the teams and the players at all they adapt, etc. Because you obviously have issues coming in every times, and for that, the adaptation, the preparation, I would give my son to Lunatic Eye as a roster, but as well to their coach that I love so much.
Do you have a score for us?
What I have seen. Oh, sorry?
Do you have a score for us?
Why are you making him the bad guy already? Like, it's not even the end of the episode.
That's sort of my job.
To be honest, I think that's gonna be close. Like, I would give 4-3 for Lunatic Eye. I think it's gonna be a really tight match against them. Like, I can't really give a really good analysis because I don't really know if, for example, Lunatic Eye is good on 2 CPs or
I can tell you though, I wrote a piece about it.
Oh yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah.
Yep. I wrote a piece about all the things like that. For example, in hybrid, Kongtu Pathera has a 3-0 score on Umbani that Lunatic High hasn't played at all in this season at all. And they have also a 2-0 score on Hollywood. And for control, which is the interesting part, it's like Lunatic High has played Nepal, that Kongtu Pathera hasn't played at all. And Li Zhang, Li Zhang, Kongtu Pathera has 2 losses. Like, and one of them was against Lunatic High in a 2-1 score. So the thing for me is, like, on maps that Pharmacy works fine for control. Like, Kongtu Pathera has the upper hand because they had the composition that is really dominant. They had a great showing against also Lunatic High. In hybrid, it depends on who picks the hybrid, basically. King's Row, Lunatic High has 1 win. Basically, both teams has played King's Row once, and Lunatic High won that map on the very first series. So it really depends on who gets to pick after the control, the first hybrid. If it's going to be Kongtu Pathera, I can see them picking either Hollywood or Numbani because they have this score. I think they will avoid definitely King's Row. But again, Lunatic High, going deeper into the series, they can pick it for second hybrid at the end of the series. And for assaults, that's the interesting thing. Kongtu Pathera hasn't played Temple of Anubis, whereas Lunatic High has played all 3 of them. And in Hanamura, I think Kongtu Pathera in Hanamura and what's the other one? And Volskaya has a score of 2-1. And I think it's the same for Volskaya for Lunatic High as well. It's a 2-1 score. So I think, like, this is going to be really close on 2 CP maps because, again, they have, like, the Sombra stats, and we know that Lunatic High is stronger with the Sombra stats. But again, they failed to Kongtu Pathera in the second match against Volskaya. Kongtu Pathera won Volskaya, so it's going to be a battle over there. And again, because you have, like, 3 maps, Lunar Colony is also in the map pool, so it's for me, it's going to be Volskaya Industries, and whoever gets to pick the second, if it's Lunatic High, it's going to be probably Temple of Anubis to upset. If it's Kongtu Pathera, they had a tradition on Hanamura, for example, because they played it in season 2 5 times, I think. They had 5 matches, and the map was randomized then. And in 3 matches, they picked the teams they were facing against them. They picked Hanamura to place, and they decimated in the group phase. And then in the quarterfinals, they picked it themselves. So they had like a 4-0 match score on Hanamura. So I think they would probably stick with it if they were to choose an assault map. And then for escorts, that's another interesting thing. Like, Kongtu Pathera is really dominant on Route 66, whereas Lunatic High has played 1 game on Watchpoint Gibraltar. So it can really go either way on escort and assault.
Not enough data.
Yeah. And for hybrid, I think it favors a bit going to Panthera, especially with Hollywood and Numbani being strong maps for them.
Like, yeah, I said big stars because I'm always like, I always confused between the two teams. They seems as the same, but yeah, Canon Pantera as well as people like Barding, etc. I saw those kind of players, but Barding is like a fucking monster. As Teimu obviously mentioned
Yeah,
it
boy.
as well.
He
Yeah,
is. Yes,
the
sir.
like even not Birding, like every player has kind of a talent. There's only one that is a bit fall off, but I think as a team, Big Stars is really good. But fact is, in my point of view, as I knew as well, Lunatic, I have really good memories on them, on Numbani. I think as a team, like the 7, 8 people in Lunatic Eye, it's gonna come with really good strategy, like they did through the entire Apex. Even if they had the group of death, they had a really tight timing, as I saw on Reddit, and from the coach from Lunatic Eye. Um, I think those guys gonna make it. Those guys gonna come with something against big stars when Condu Pantera. When those guys Condu Pantera actually is relying on how much Birding and the rest of the crew is on fire. Like I don't mention that they're not as much strategical and the rest as Lunatic Eye is, but I think Becca Star is gonna lose against Lunatic Eye mods things they're gonna bring up in the final. They're gonna cook up something. They're gonna cook up something. At the moment, even if it didn't work, the moment I saw this Orisa thing on Econvold, I felt in love with the Lunatic Eye coach because there's something working up. And those Koreans, they're like
The one where they were holding like behind the payload on the house there with the ceiling in
yeah,
front
exactly.
of them, right?
It didn't work up well, and I think they actually bring up Orisa in all the map before, and I couldn't see it. But yeah, those guys has one step forward on the game, and this is like 100% sure.
Okay, I was going to ask you, like, no matter when the discussion was going to bring it up, but do you watch Apex matches to get insight in the game, to get new strats and think about it? Because Kai, if it wasn't Takeover, it's definitely contenders. He mentioned that for some teams, like they're copying strats from Apex, and so the question is always rises like, and I think in League of Legends, basically, it's mostly, if not 100%, it's like everyone is copying from Koreans. It's not even an issue that we're coming up with something new. It's just we try to copy it and try to play it better. So, what's your thought? Was like, do you gain some pieces from there, some pieces from some places, and you combine them to do your own thing? Because also Overwatch it's really young. Like it's not like everything has been discussed and found out. So there's still room for innovation in this sense.
So the fact is, the Lunatic Eye coach mentioned about Sombra. So this is a really funny fact because I actually liked Sombra from the beginning, the moment that she would be announced. Most notably because I was sure it was Blizzard going up with the first silence kit champion in the game. So when I saw that she would actually come with this, but moreover an ultimate that would be a silence as well, managing packs, something that would be more macro game type than the mechanical kill potential thing, I was like, okay, I'm gonna throw this. And back in Gamers Origin, I was actually working on stuff about Sombra. I think we actually set up the first competitive Sombra, at least in Lijiang, on the tower control point. And I actively worked over Sombra because even if the meta was going forward a dive meta, which would be in the first guess a really bad meta for Sombra, as well for the first defense point in Hollywood, I was like working on things. And when I came to Movistar Riders, Coasty and the rest would say, okay, dude, we pro Sombra. I was like, thanks, I'm gonna work on stuff. And we actually worked, both Neptuno and me, on Sombra because it was really good on this, really good Sombra. He worked on solo queue on his account. And back in the days, I would actually got advices from Louis that was in Envious, Phase, etc. And I was like the first guy to actually come on the top of the ladder with Sombra. So I actually walked over advices from Louis back in November. And when I came to Movistar Riders, we walked over the Sombra. But if there's credit for given to someone about the Sombra things, it's only over Neptuno. Because I worked with Neptuno over the possibility of Sombra in our composition, both players, champions, etc. And we worked over it. So even if I really like to listen from Korean, and most notably on the way of coaching as well, like I think I'm more of a Korean coaching staff style than the Occidental one, and that's the same on how I walk over the game. So the play style, the strategic, etc. But for Sombra, I didn't really know which team in motion, but actually didn't get any play style strategy from Apex, and I was really proud of that because proud of that because it was only from all the work that Neptuno did in solo queue and with me walking over the things and actively thinking on how we could make Sombra viable, because we knew, at least both of us, that Sombra was a really good champion, and in the style of ult management, a champion that can actually manage, control, and deny ult management, where it's the basic and important thing over the game. I was like, okay, I want to walk over this champion. Yeah. For me, it's like, I really like Sombra. I'm a pro Sombra, to be honest. And I walked, at least in the secret. Yeah.
In the beginning, if you remember, it was like, you're using Sombra to win a fight and you're losing basically the next, because like you're denying the ultimates, but the ultimates come back at you. But right now it's almost like because it was like the tank meta back then, so the ultimate charges were also slow, like Reinhardt, Zarya, these ultimates are slow. Right now in the triple DPS meta, for example, the ultimates are too fast. Genji gets huge ultimates almost every other fight. Tracer has it almost every fight. So I think this got clicked better with Sombra, that the fact that you can silence something that comes up in every fight, rather than something that comes up in 3 fights later on, for example, the Zarya ultimate. And now that you mentioned the Lunatic High Coach, I need to make a statement. Do not trust this guy. Like, this guy... This guy is feeding the opposition definitely wrong statements. In some cases, not everything. He's really like, when he's praising or when he's like, I don't know if it's a Korean thing or something, but sometimes he makes it sound like, especially when he starts like, who's going to win against going to Bathera versus Envious? Envious, definitely. Like, dude, relax. Like, you know, they have like issues. Yeah. Like. I mean, Bedrink, like, come on, give it like a bit of second thought or something. No. Then it's going for, like, come on, you're the coach, you have insight. Like, you don't make these statements and you fall that far off your prediction. Like,
I mean, I think somehow his statement is actually truthful, because I really wanted to see an Envious team without issues, without the Taimo being depressed, and I think it was the same for the rest of the team. When you actually see Effect as how he is, etc., I think he actually managed to suck up a lot of things, but it seems like the I don't know how you call it in English, but I think he was affected by this, and the rest of the team as well. And it's really sad, because when you see the representative of Europe, like one of the best team, those guys are really good, and even Kiki is like a really good coach. It's really sad to see so much issues at the top and the best competition in the world of Overwatch. Even if you're in Apex, you still have issues, and this is so sad, because I really wanted to see an Envious without any problems, like fighting for to the edge. Like, Taimu even said it. He was happy that it was over. So the moment you actually get in a match for going through the Apex, one of the best competition, you know there is a problem. And this is really sad, because I'm actually thinking that the Lunatic Eye coach is making a good statement, but effectively, as you say, they have issues. So it was actually not that surprising that they would fall off and get stumped.
By the way, if I see one more pleb on Reddit claim that the Afrika Flix Blue against Envy series meant anything in terms of the level of play these two teams are on, I'm gonna smack a bitch. Like, this is fucking ridiculous. This meant nothing. They were memeing, basically.
You're gonna get banned. Okay. You're gonna get banned. You're gonna get all the Redditors on your stuff. No, but I understand your point of view.
I mean,
I mean, you're true, no?
if he hasn't done already, I know he's fought way many hills this week.
Yeah. It's sort of a pastime to just fend them off. And sometimes I actually get upvoted for my shit. That's the most ridiculous stuff about it. But I think in many ways what you were saying about Sombra, with who are you going out and also the meta switching sort of in that direction, I guess we could talk about if the meta switched into that direction because Lunatic High played such a great Sombra, or not that Asuka was like the outstanding Sombra, but the system around it was, right? It's like, I think it's safe.
Do you want me to reenact the sideshow expression? Like the psycho reaction?
I mean, Asuka is not outstanding. I mean, Asuka is not outstanding, but I really like him as a player because he seems to actually suck up all the hate over him. But moreover, even if he's not that good, I think he's a really... It seems like a hard worker. Like, he seems to actually put a lot of work over himself. And he got at least decent on Terrestrial, and he's actually working to be versatile. And he seems to actually end up playing good at some point.
Yep.
And even if he's not outstanding, I think he's a good part of Lunatic Eye, and this is why he sticked to Lunatic Eye and not getting replaced. Because I think Asuka is really one of those guys that is giving a lot of potential to a team, mostly because of how much passion and work he's putting on.
I can definitely see that. I mean, they're probably, none of them seem like they're lacking passion, but I think also what Asuka is like he's like not only a systematic player that can like that's sort of the extension of the coach within the game, but it's also I think he's sort of like a glue player because all of them have either very extroverted personalities like a Ruje Hong that just basically tells it like if you run out of I heard that at Check Over too. If you run out of LOS from Ruje Hong and he still has to heal you, by God, man, you're getting flamed at, right? That's a no-go, right? But there's different types of leadership, right?
I need healing.
I would make the comparison for those that are familiar with soccer is like the World Cup team that won it for Germany, right? We had Schweinsteiger, who was like the vocal leader, and he had his right brow like bruised and like was like bleeding, but he was fighting on. This is sort of like the Ruje Hong, like just pulls you with emotion. While someone like Lam was more like the cerebral type of player, was more like the calming effect. If there were frictions within the team, he could manage those, right? And both of them have value, right? And then you can argue about who the real leader is. Officially, obviously, in Korea, because Asuka is the older guy, he naturally has to be the team captain. Otherwise, that would be a big, tell. If he wasn't the leader, then we could be sure that he's not really such an important player for Lunatic High. But as it seems like now, it's he is let's say a valuable individual in that team. And now that Sombra works, he actually also seemed to have found his heroes because. Like, let's.
He also has Soldier. He also has Soldier.
That's true. That's true. Yeah.
Like every slow-paced hitscan hero, he's good at. Tracer, who's like you have like you need environmental awareness, and you move around too much. I think he struggles a lot there. And for me, Asuka is the guy who sticks to a plan. Right? We have this plan with the coach and everything. I'm going to do as the plan says. I'm not going to.
Exactly.
Just like that's my on my instincts and go for that. And I want to ask Daemon, for example, do you have this kind of set plays with Movistar Riders where everyone should execute something really specific in the execution? And I mean, obviously there are some occasions where like everyone is going to judge, like everyone is going to make a call for himself, but you have this like set execution, like I'm going here, you're going there, and all these things. Okay.
Yeah, that's this is why I like this game. There's so many possibility, like a display of gameplay versatility, and with the actual switch of the meta with Dolphins, most notably, you have like so many things to work. But Movistar Riders was an actual really interesting phase because they would actually be complete as a team, but there were so many things in the actually wine. Like you needed to work over stuff, and most notably on the potential of every hero, like Swoosh, Logix, everyone actually need to have a plan and as a job, and that's why I can't really speak about it. But on the survey of on the Overwatch League thing for the players, like the signing thing, there was something like strategist, shot caller, and something else. I think it was target caller. Like in the mind of people, it's like just the Lucio shot calling, but in fact, actually in communication, the way you're playing, like everyone practically has a job, but you have most notably the target thing, the shot calling, which is more about the decision in the fight at the moment, and the strategist that would be more laid back with a huge POV that would get the youth management, youth scouting, the strategy over the next fight that you would do. So actually things look structured. And this is all Koreans play, I believe. But this is all teams would work. And I tried to implement that in Movistar Riders, where Swoosh has to get in a position to actually get in communication with Kosti. Kosti would get this information, so Logix would actually get an information, so Logix can actually get in position, and you actually and actively make a good dive. Because at some point we couldn't play any more 3 DPS because the suite was like Diva, but you go back to 3 DPS because we native on it, but Diva is too strong. Like a lot of things we needed to work, and I think a lot of teams, is working over that. Like the pre-fights plan, but moreover the maps things, etc. Like there's so much deepness into it, but yeah, I tried to work over that with the players, and you got a really good insight over it, because it seems, at least in Korea, that they mastered this type of communication plan, like this type of the 6 players going over it.
Sorry, I got to do it.
You got what?
Don't you remember the Luxury Gods blue calling? Shot
Oh,
calling?
Yeah, they basically, yeah, that was. I mean, in a sense, the game is just unbelievably complex, and it's impossible for one person to just track it all, right? Like, I think there was a very insightful comment from Dahang, and he mentioned it on Twitter, and he was like, and obviously Dahang, FPS veteran, most notably known from Quake, he said Overwatch is the most messy game he's ever played, meaning like there's so many complex factors that it's very, very hard to predict and then make educated decisions based on that. And a lot of it can go wrong. And I think at some point, as we develop, as a pro scene, I think there's light at the end of the tunnel. I think when we have to figure it out, all the different, tasks players have to take and everything, and once maybe patches stabilize for certain competitions, I think we will see that it sort of at least clears up for the pro player community, right? And we will probably also see more stable results in that sense. Would you agree with that, Daemon?
Yeah, totally. To be honest, like as the game as all it is, there's so much like things you need to work on, and patches sometimes doesn't help it. So you obviously need to work a lot more, and this is really hard to adapt sometimes. But yeah, like you pretty much mentioned everything about that, and I'm kind of agree on that. Like there's no much more to speak about it.
By the way, you can share some strategies because the team is no longer, and therefore you're probably the one who has like the copyright of all those strategies. So go ahead,
kind of.
mate, like.
I mean, I think this is something like a strategy at some point. Like even the best one is like obsolete at some point. Like there's strategy that you would go over, but the dive meta is something again different, and you can't really speak about it. Like this is a actual really interesting fact where you actually compare the actual dive meta that happened for 3 months and the May Reaper meta back in the days. Like there's so much thing to it that is interesting as a strategy game that could be Overwatch. And the overall strategy that I would make with the team is like you need to walk over and over again and again, and this is the same for practically every meta that you would encounter. But yeah, like I don't have any secrets to teams that I could share, because even though that would be not that much useful. Like things gonna change even more with Doomfist. Like this is insane. I got the chance to see a bit of scrims in PBE, and this is gonna be insane. I think we're gonna like the next meta.
Okay.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me
But to be honest, I think so.
let me ask on this patch, because like there's so much preparation. Then we saw some scrims from Team South Korea, right? And obviously half of Team South Korea is Lunatic High, so there's obviously things to consider, that they are also scrimming for their nation, and that doesn't really help their practice. So it was quite interesting to me to see, and I can't believe I have to ask this, but like they were playing Junkrat as counter dive. Do you think that could be a viable strategy?
Obviously.
So,
This is really hard to tell now, because even more in my position, I don't have Mate or Walk, but this is something that I could see. I heard about Reaper Macri, I heard about a lot of composition that would come in, and this is not that, and I'm not even surprised. This is something that I could see, because if you actually manage to hold your Junkrat to counter dive, you could actually have an overall composition that could actually beat as well the tanks as much as you could play it in novel playstyle that you could get. But yeah, I can't say much about it because I didn't see it and didn't get much sight over it. But I'm not even surprised. Like I think it can work. The moment they're working on something that could actually work, and Junkrat isn't even surprised to me.
do you think there's any chance we're going to see 7 games? And let's exclude Control from this, because there's obviously always the Fire Mercy strategies and some submaps. But is there any chance we're going to see full dives playing each other the entire series tomorrow?
Possibly. I mean, I can't really say, because I don't think so, because Lunatic Eye, as I said, has always something to work on, and always something like they need to adapt. Because I don't know if you actually read it, but Lunatic Eye has a lot of teams walking over them. In Korea as well, there's a lot of bots cheering as well. There's a lot of things like that you actually can't walk on something without being noticed. And Lunatic Eye is the big boss. You want to get the big boss down, and you try to get them as much as you can. So Lunatic Eye has the pressure to actually walk over and over. So a meaningless dive meta walking and doing over 7 games, I can't see it coming, at least on Lunatic Eye position. And I think Condu Pantera is gonna come up with something as well. But I mean, most of the composition that would happen is like Dev, obviously. It's gonna only happen with few maps on few CPs that Lunatic Eye could work on, stuff like we mentioned Orisa. Maybe they're gonna come up with something as much cheesy as it was. So
Yeah. Reinhardt, Bastion, Orisa, and Mercy. All
exactly.
the
Best composition, obviously. But I wouldn't be surprised. As I said, I wouldn't be surprised. I would come up with something we would actually need to think about.
You know what really bugs me in Overworld is the first point defense, and how it can snowball you to second point, and especially in hybrid and escort maps to third point, almost third point. Like, how much weight do teams put in the first point defense? And by that I mean like ultimate management, like carrying over your ultimate charge to the second point, or like having a core, like back in the day when triple tank was with Reinhardt, Zarya, and Roadhog. Yeah, when with these three heroes was back in there, like they had some kind of inner synergy, right? Like Zarya would have her ultimate ready for the second phase. The Reinhardt maybe would have charged his ultimate for the first phase. Anyways, it was like a succession of ultimates, and therefore it was like, you're doing this now, but we're carrying it over to the next phase. And I'm wondering about it because if you're going to run a novel composition in the first point, okay, and it fails miserably, like for example back in Apex Season 2, the Torbjorn composition, like if it worked, yes, you could snowball it, but if it failed miserably, it would set you back almost to the second point, and you have to fight on the point. Like the car would roll out to the second point rather easily, and I'm always wondering, like, is it an issue? Like you're working your strategy from the first point defense to the second third, or it's like we're trying to counter a specific composition with a specific composition, and then we're going to switch no matter what.
Yeah, like this is really interesting because this is true, and Korean, most notably Lunatic Eye, is doing it. I couldn't really get listen from it and actually analyze it, but yeah, basically when you're going over huge composition, like you involve 3-4 switch, if it doesn't work, like it's still something structured, like if you're gonna win this and you're gonna go and snowball over it and take times on it, you can actually manage to change bit by bit your composition. But if you actually fail, this is the same thing. This is still structural because you failed. You need to go all over the composition. So basically, it's more about, okay, we need to build our youth management back and try to crack them up on theirs. So you're going to fight over the point to try to get as much as time as you can and try to not get snowballed through the third CP. So it's basically the 2 CP trying to build the youth management and the control of the game and to break momentum on this. But yeah, this is like, either if you win or you lose, you still have a structured plan in your mind, and like it can fail, and you fail, so you need to go over it and try to get your youth management back and the composition, etc., like the control and the advantage of the game, or you actually win it and it's snowball. But it's not complicated strategy that you come up at the middle of the second CP, for example, and you need to change over it. Like this is, I think, as I said, I didn't watch it that much, at least deep enough. But yeah, they have the plan in mind, and even if you commit this hard, this is a bet that Korean actually gets, and this is why they would, for example, Lunatic Eye would come up with the Orisa thing in Ekenvold, because I could see them all the first points really easily if it didn't happen on few mistakes they would make.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I agree. It's increasingly hard, and I think it's also quite interesting how the experts differ in their evaluation of not only like the final score, and I think most of them are leaning towards Lunatic High from what I've seen, right? So even like the Winston Slab calculation obviously still sort of flawed, has it like 60-40. I think that doesn't sound too bad, right? 60-40 for Lunatic High sounds like a reasonable estimation. Now I have to say, if Kongdu Panthera wins it tomorrow, depending on how they win it, and if Bertring can play his usual level that he has played across the season,
they could win.
They could win, and I would say you have a reasonable argument that Bertring, as of right now, might be the best player in the world.
Oh yeah, obviously.
Because
like totally.
DPS players in that team are basically the hard carries, right? They aren't. They are very DPS focused, right? And in that sense, we also have two different kinds of style that are going to meet tomorrow, right? If they are indeed playing, the normal compositions. Because from what we've seen, the DPS in Kong the Panthera get a lot more kills, for instance, than in others, and it's a lot more DPS focused. While in Lunatic High, obviously they have an all-star surrounding support cast. Like you will have a hard time to find two better supports. I think not only is Ru Jaehong obviously a nuts flex support, and Toby is a nuts Lucio, but they together are probably the best support player we have in the game right now.
Yeah.
Then we have like the perennial Winston, Miro, which you now have to say, after seeing all these games, especially also from AF Blue and everything, I think now, if you had to pick the team for South Korea, now you would have to pick Miro again, because he had a pretty stellar performance. Like not only because of the stats, but also because just how much he has ramped it up across the season.
Think the future. If Reinhardt gets back in the game, like Miro's Reinhardt isn't so good, and they're like the BlizzCon finals for the Overwatch World Cup
Sure,
be held
but
in
the
end of
Manos
October.
Reinhardt is also a big question mark, isn't it? And at least with Miro,
I think
he's not a
better.
Kaiser, but he's like a serviceable Reinhardt, right?
I'm not sure. Like, I don't know what they expect, but this was their reasoning, and I agree with it. Like, the meta is going to shift, and you need to be prepared for the meta in the Overwatch World Cup. If you put all your bets on the Winston thing, and the Winston thing becomes obsolete, then you're at a huge disadvantage. You can change your roster, basically. And I have no idea why they allow teams for the Overwatch League to have like up to 12 players. They allow contenders to have like up to 9 players, and they have no substitutes for the Overwatch World Cup, for example. Like, come on, what's happened there?
Yeah, that's quite true, right?
At least one guy, like one support or something. If Rizzo Hong gets a flu like a few days before the finals, are they going to postpone the finals? Are they going to get him medical support?
Coaches,
like,
mate, coaches. Yeah, probably, right? It's.
I don't know.
I mean, I like Miro as a player as well. I think he's the more psychological and intellect type. Like, he wasn't that outstanding. Expect on Winston back in the days where he was considered that the best tank, but more notably the best Winston in the world. Like, I really like Lunatic Eyes, so I'm not really objective with this, but I really like Miro as a player as well, and that's true that Manu as well is really good. So I think the actual World Cup team is not that bad. It would have maybe done better, as we actually saw, but it's still really good, and I think Mano is gonna show up a really good show at the World Cup. And by the way, I'm betting 100% on the Korean team to win the World Cup.
Really?
I mean,
I'm gonna get enemies out from that, but I'm betting on Korea.
Someone's going to wait here outside the door the next time you get out, once the episode rolls.
Such courage.
Be
Such
prepared.
Courage. Though, to be fair, if we think about it, I would actually say, like, from the way my understanding of Overwatch works right now, if they had Miro, actually, then I would say yes. No questions asked. Not only because, like, I think Miro is now slightly edged it slightly past Mano, but also because then we would have more players from Lunatic High, right? And we would have a more solid core.
On that.
Yes, and now you have like 3 players from one team. That's solid, yes. But if you know, they were a little bit more familiar, and also keep in mind, the amount of practice is currently, at least for the qualifiers, sort of limited. Obviously, that won't matter as much.
I don't know if you remember this actual picture that I liked, but back in the days of the first World Cup, you actually had the Korean lineup team for the World Cup, and there were every national team behind them, actually watching them at how they play, etc. I think even it's moreover, like more notably because of little time they have to practice, and most notably because they focus to get like the best players, even they didn't manage it well for issues. The amount of practice and tryharding they're making as a team, and more notably with like not a one team but like Mano, etc., like those good players we want all together. I think they're gonna show up a really, really huge display of like, again, work ethic and management over the course of the World Cup. We're gonna see at least a bit of potential in the group stage, and we can see at least from the group stage if they're gonna go really hard on the final stage of the World Cup, and if they have a chance to actually win over Rogue, because Rogue is still like a really huge contenders, and I think everyone basically give them the first spot, which is kind of logical and rational.
Yeah, I think the thing is, if the final was, for instance, of the World Cup was played tomorrow instead, I would actually not say that South Korea would win this. I would think Rogue would definitely take that.
Yeah.
Simply because, not only because of the practice, but also because the meta is now as it is now. We don't know how Rogue, and obviously there's always the question how quickly pro teams will adapt Doomfist. But I have an inkling that this might be a little bit faster than with a Sombra or with Anna, where it always took like a month. I think Doomfist will be incorporated much more quickly into the meta. Maybe also some teams will take a chance before, international competition starts up again. But yeah, that's like towards BlizzCon, we don't know actually how good Rogue will be. They need to adapt again, right? And they do have the boon of communication, but I don't know if
It's gonna be hard.
everything will work out for them. Like, for instance, who would you say who would play Doomfist in Rogue?
Nico, that would be logical. Nico is in the position to play, and I think they're actively working over Nico versatility, as it was first of a problem in Apex and a lot of other things with Rogue, because Rogue could have managed to be better than they had, and it's gonna be hard for Rogue in the long term at how much they adapt, because basically they moved that player to like Nox going on the tank position, Wings going on the Lucio position, and trying to get Nico, that was back at the time considered as a one-trick pony Genji, but it would fit perfectly for the actual meta. And look as it is, the dive meta came for like practically 3 months. The only thing that happened bad for Rogue is like, okay, Nico, you need to go on Diva. That's gonna be hard, and you need to adapt to it. And we basically saw how much of a problem it was for Rogue and how much of potential they lost on this. And it was logical. And I need to see, as an experiment, how Rogue is gonna adapt on the future meta with Doomfist. Even if they're not that penalized, in my opinion, but we're gonna see Nox, Reinhardt, we're gonna see...
Yeah, that's a penalty, isn't it, though? Like, he hates his guts. Like, I remember, like, the way dive meta actually spawned was because he didn't want to play Reinhardt, right? So
exactly.
That's a big question for me. And also, if Zarya was actually part of a composition, do you put Soon on that?
This is a really good question again. Like, you have AKM, Soon, and Nico, that could be considered as the best French DPS player, but most notably maybe in Europe or even in the world, even if it can be debated. But like, do you put Soon on Zarya? Do you put Nico? If Nico will adapt to Doomfist, I think Doomfist as well, because we didn't speak about it, but I think Doomfist is really good, and the next meta is going to be good, most notably because Doomfist can open so much versatility in a lot of maps, etc. That happened a bit with that meta, but Diva was too strong. And now we have the Doomfist that can counter over it. But we can counter the Doomfist, but the counter of the Doomfist can be counter as well. And it's like tack over the game. And there's, at least from what I've seen on the PBE, you have one major composition, which is Reinhardt, Zarya, Macri, Doomfist, Ana, Zenyatta, and Zenyatta with the Macri, and Lucio. But you have kind as well of the counter over that, and the counter over that, etc., etc. So versatility is gonna come, and then there's gonna be, like every other game, one composition that is king overall. There's still versatility that will come up, and I want to see Korea get in the game and walk over it, because we're gonna see really, really huge thing. I'm sure of it.
Yes, I agree.
So Rogue is a really good question right now, and that's why I want to see it. How they gonna adapt? If is Wins gonna get back to, like, it's not possible.
Quake?
He's going to Doomfist.
Good thing as well. Another debate. People going and quitting game, and most notably Liquid. Yeah, like Rogue is in a really bad spot if they want to switch player, because I don't see Rogue. If they need to make roster change, they need to kick Nico and get back to their old position, right? Like, I think this is the most logical way to actually do the thing.
Do you have to invite the black sheep of the French scene again? You know what I'm talking about?
No, not really.
The French Zarya crew.
Misfits crew.
Oh, crew, right, crew. Because actually, in the French scene, you would actually speak about Poco, which was like a player going out of nowhere, and it got really noticed on the scene, on the Europe scene. But that's right, that crew is on the back. But I don't know. He seems rather stick to Ice Block and seems to have a really nice day over them. So
Okay.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't see crew going over Rogue though.
There's a
I
lot
saw
of
there.
talent in the French scene, right? You
True.
even if like you could go to like if you need a Reinhardt, and obviously maybe Rogue will entertain bigger rosters. So for instance, if Nox doesn't want to play Reinhardt, doesn't need to, just get Superplug or something, right?
Yeah, true.
Or I guess what other like there are some talents. Sometimes I feel French talent is a little bit overhyped, and that happened, for instance, to Flippy, where it was like when Flippy came to Melty, I remember it felt like he was praised as like instantly top 3 DPS in Europe because he was apparently an insane TF2 player, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
Like I don't know, who else was there? Like in general, Melty was also a little bit overestimated back in the day, I think. Like they were basically good in the first week of beta, and then it kind of went downhill, right?
Yeah, like they were really good at the close beta, if I remember correctly. They were like
Yes.
first over everything, but effectively after the close beta, etc., they did go down wild. So yeah, there was something.
It wasn't that long, mate. It was like the first 3 or 4 weeks of beta where they were actually constantly first. But then, like, the old Hubris roster, that was the first Envious roster, were actually the most dominant team then. So, I think it was like 3 weeks of domination from Melty. Then Seagull's team also, because they were always playing around. Then obviously Reunited lost a bunch, or Fnatic they were back then. And then it was like, okay, Hubris just dominates everything, right? And then once Hubris died, I think it already was then IDDQD. Then it was C9, and then it was IDDQD again. And that was basically the way the beta went, right? Yeah, but it's kind of interesting. I don't think it's as much of a problem. For some reason in FPS games, the French always have solid talent, right? While I look at Germany, where we have more people, and our teams are consistently shit, right? So I don't know what it is with French people, but they seem to have a knack for FPS. Do you think that more people in France play FPS games than any other type? I mean, we're famously playing fucking, Euro Truck Simulator or something. It's not exactly. I mean, I guess you kind of practice Reinhardt that way, but.
Good analogy, but yeah, I mean, this is a true fact because back in Gamers Origin, I would kick 2 players. That was the off tank and the tank, and we were looking for good players. And even if it's not on the scale of work, for example, it's still that I encountered the scouting of Kosti and Poco, and I was really glad to see how much potential players have in France. And I was sure of the scout of those 2 players. Poco is like one of the players that was praised back in Gamers Origin, when we were good. Poco was like insane. People were like, "Oh my God, Poco is carrying," and it's true. This guy is a talent, and it could be at the top of Europe in any team, in my opinion. And Kosi the same. Like he came to Gamers Origin and got poached by Logix back in the days for Movistar Riders. Like. I am actually, and that's why I was always so interested in France. Like, even if the mentality and the work ethics is not that good in difference of an European team, split, like, make all the all the French in free agent state. You could make free roster out of French people and go over the top on Europe with a good coaching staff. I'm pretty sure of it. And I think France, as a whole, is like one of the best country in Overwatch after Sweden, most notably. Like, there's so much talent in FPS, that's true. But in Overwatch, I think that's the thing that didn't happen in League of Legends, even if we are star players, that is French. Overwatch is gonna make France really good, in my opinion. Like, there's a really huge ton of talents, and that's why the moment I saw Poco and Kosti, they were playing at the bottom of the French scene, I was like, okay, those players can be Europe class. And put good coaching staff in France, in Europe overall, try to scout players, make them good, in a good position, and I can be top tier class player.
And ship them to America. That's the process, basically.
This is the easy step in Overwatch. That's true. That's actually true.
I mean, the funny part for me was that 1 month basically after Rogue transferred over to relocated to America, it came that meeting of Nate Nancers, the Overwatch commissioner, where he showed like the cities that were going to be in the Overwatch League, and among them was Paris. And I'm like, couldn't you tell the guys like a little bit earlier? Like, they would probably have a spot in their city. Like, why would they have to go all the way to the other side of the Atlantic to play in your game if it was going to be a spot in their city? So I'm really curious if Paris is one of the cities that's going to eventually be part of Overwatch League. Which team is going to represent it?
I mean, that's funny because this picture we saw with the 12, 16 teams, 16 cities.
Yeah.
Weirdly, Blizzard was like, no, this is not true. This is not the thing. But actually, weirdly, those cities we saw months ago are actually being brought up. So this is obviously Frankfurt, Paris, and London that is going to be in Europe. And there's going to be only 3 teams in Europe. And Paris, what can you expect PSG going over the spot? Like, I don't know. And this is true that
PSG
the likes
buying Lunatic High, SK on the Eiffel Tower, I can see it now. Like,
I mean, that's true though, that people going over the Atlantics for that when your Overwatch League is coming up, but still, this is so unsure. You can't be sure what is gonna get the spot, what's gonna get over the team, even more in this season 1, when it's only on the likes of the organization that is getting the spot. Like, if they want to take a random team, they can get it. It's like up to them. The only moment you're gonna have the scouting grounds, and most notably the draft, is on the end of the season. So it's really hard to say. Like, the best decision right now is to go over the Atlantics and get an NA. That's why Rogue made it. That's why pretty much every team that had the support and the financial backup to go over there, they did it. And this is like the most logical move in the world. So I don't know. We're gonna see this in few weeks, maybe months. I don't know. They're gonna announce it on BlizzCon. This is obvious for me.
Do you see yourself relocating to America if you have an offer?
Obviously.
I'm asking on behalf of Blizzard Basic. I'm just giving the scouting report now.
I mean, my objective is to get in
Yes.
Overwatch League no matter what. Like, there's no much opportunity. I want to get into it, and I want to walk over it because it's so, like, it's the basic. You need to get over the Overwatch League to be considered in this game. And even more in my situation, either in real life or in the game, things that is promising in Overwatch League could get me in a better way as a person, but as a coach as well. So I'm obviously looking for any offers. If I have something, even in Korea or even in Thailand, etc., but could go in Overwatch League, I could go.
I know a French team that doesn't have a coach right now. Like, wink, Rogue.
No, they have a coach. This is Lundfest.
Nah, it's actually more of a manager, basically.
Yeah, it's more of a manager, actually. That's true. But I think
basically, like not really a coach, but it's more like an analyst, like some guy who's like
that is
going over.
Rogue as a team and the 6 players is like, and we saw it on Twitter with the actual community, even if the community is only streamers, so it's kind of logical. But Rogue in their mentality is like, we know the game, so we work on it. And this is basically it. They actually said it on Twitter. And I think Lundfest is a really good guy, really talented guy. And he's doing the manager thing. But I think as well, he's doing the analyst data thing. Like he's getting over the data and getting what the players can have. Learn first, I think, is a major key for Rogue because he's actually looking over the screen, taking the data, giving them to the players so the players can work on it and be better. And that's why Rogue was good because we can't say anything. That's true. They still got a really good travel over Overwatch with that coach. And Learn First gave them a bit of a better work with data. But right now, that's true that Rogue, in my opinion, need a coach, a really good coach. And I don't say this for me because I don't see myself in Rogue, but like I think for them to go forward in the game, as the game is getting more deep, that you need more work over it, and you see this team is getting better and better, you need someone to work over it. Maybe Lundfest can do it, and I hope he can do it with this team because he deserved it.
I can tell you, like, I have this this suspicion that if you want to be head coach of Rogue, you best be like a 40-year-old, like self-made multi-millionaire, like married to 3 women somehow at the same time, like the French used to do. Like, I don't know, like, the way I perceived it at TakeOver was, okay, to be fair, that was directly after they came back from Korea. So they were all spread across the location all the time, mostly hanging out with their girlfriends or wives or whatever, right? So while we have this idea of like a closed unit, I think it's also very important sort of to the French or to the soul of this team that they all are their own personalities. And we've heard that all of them are salty all the time, right? And Chief Salt is apparently Nox. Like, I think it will be very hard to get into the position where all of those players, also because they're already older, will have your respect, right?
Yeah, I mean, their hedge is not even the problem. Like, they actually tried it on the paper. Like, I mean, I don't know any information about it, but they actually tried to bring up Internet Hulk. And Hulk, in my opinion, was like the most smart Occidental player in this game. I was like, okay, him going over the coaching thing from the rival team, Envious going over Rogue and working over the players, that's gonna work. No, so
You
no
know, that's the perfect example.
like-
You say that he was the most, smart player, also the best team builder. X amount of teams behind the scenes have taken his advice into team building. Much of them in the Western scene are now very, very competitive, are playing for the spots of the best Western team. He obviously created this all the time, then lost a little bit of his team lost confidence in his ability as a player, but not as a strategist. He gets to Rogue, and behind the scenes we hear, oh, he actually doesn't do anything. Come on, French people! That's obviously not true, right? But that's exemplary to what I expect Rogue to be.
This is the personality, this is as well the ego. Was gonna teach one of the best DPS player in the world, or he's gonna play and where he's gonna positioning, etc. And already as well, when you have Nox, we don't mention him,
Yeah,
but Nox is big. He's big in everything.
Yeah.
He seems rather important as a team. He already made his name on TF2 and on Overwatch. I think Rogue is like, why do we have the necessity of a coach when we have Nox and us as a team? Like, basically the game, at least in the early stages, teaching you, okay, so the only best coach for you on the mechanical way is yourself, but as well to understand the game in a macro strategical way is the players as well. And we have one player for that, and this is Nox. So for me, Internet Hulk, anyone can't work with this team because they already have the assets. I don't say I agree with that, but in my opinion, exterior, and as I say this, for me, this is how Rogue is functioning and how they're working over that. Maybe they're gonna try another coach in the future, maybe in the career of Internet. The moment Internet got in and dropped out, I mean, this is gonna be hard. Like, I don't see anyone else get into that.
Even if not a coach, like, just to manage their playstyle, at least someone that gets data that they can, he can put forth a second opinion or something like that. Even that, I think it will help them tremendously, because this is, for me, what made them fail in Apex. Like, they have the skills, but they need someone that's going to grind vote and find weakness. Like, I can see Lamfast focusing on the things you said, like going over the screens, seeing where they position wrong, where they like adapt and things that. But I can't see him as the guy who's going to watch, to sit down and watch like 20 hours of votes just to find like weaknesses or small tendencies of opposing players to take advantage of Rogue. And not because he can't do it, but I think he's not like in this phase in his life where he's going. I think you're more of that guy that he's going to put hours and hours of work in that regard, for example. So I think that they could benefit from a guy like you, personally. Or
I mean,
like
you have a good insight on this, but they're gonna say you're wrong and they just sucked and they already got other things that they needed to work, but it just didn't work. Like, it's not even flaming or taunting or anything. Like, they're actually working this way, and this is kind of a good independent working style they have. But you can't say to them that coach maybe would have made them better. And even, I mean, as you say, someone that give advices, etc., like, they wouldn't get benefit out of that. Like, Ulk got in trial, maybe he got in the position, he tried to work with them. They saw both him and them that they can't work together, most notably on the coaching staff and roster thing. Like, to be honest, I don't see any coach on even non-first as tight binding over the roster. He knows AKM, he knows Soon, he knows practically everyone on this, and that's why they bring it up on the roster, because they work more over their ego, maybe not even that ego. It's more about their potential of the game, or they see it how much, because they're still good players. They're the Rogue team that beat the Envious that gone like for 40 win streak back in the days at the early stage of Overwatch. So why would they listen to someone when they're actually grinding up at one of the best team in the world? Obviously they're gonna go downhill, in my opinion, from now. Maybe they're gonna adapt, and maybe they're gonna show us how much they don't need a coach. But it's true that, as you say, maybe they need someone to give them advice, but they wouldn't take it. They wouldn't take it, and it would be useless either for the coach, either for them, because you need to respect the coach, and the coach need to be a great fragment, not even a key fragment over the team, but a magic key. He needs to walk over the team, make himself respected, and give them the work, because he's working, as you say, hours and hours on the votes. So if you actually respect him and give him the trust, he can actually, even if you say he's not a previous pro player, as I could encounter myself, I see walked over those votes. I see I have the competence to see what is your weakness, what is your strong thing, and what is the team you're gonna fight, what is their weakness as well. And I can say to you, do this, you trust me, you're gonna win. That's it. But work is working on themselves, and this is not a bad way of working, because a coach can't have the scythe of a players and the 6 people maybe working all together. Maybe Nox is not the only one working. Nox is making him respect himself to the players. Like, I knew and I know from information that Nox, like, the moment he says something like, oh, this is a bad push, you know you're gonna make not a bad push, a bush on the other one. You know you're gonna get like flamed by him, or like getting severed because you didn't make the good push, you know? So he make himself really respected, and this is all work, in my opinion, works, or at least from what I see.
Yeah. I think in a sense, Nox has to be one of the most criminally underrated, not only players but also people in the Overwatch scene. Because if you look at the history of his teams, so he was in Creation. The vast majority of the talent from Creation are now irrelevant in the scene. Maybe they are on some World Cup team every once in a while. He, like, during a time that he was contesting the best teams in the world, that was admittedly still in beta. For instance, they had very close series against Rogue at Takeover 1. Then later on, they actually won a tournament or an event against Rogue in the finals. I think, for instance, Bromas was on a team, Numlocked. Obviously, nowadays, like, all kicked players, right? They never got to the same level again, which they were on with Nox. Then Nox goes to Rogue, and that team just starts exploding, right? So it's like he is the kingmaker basically in Overwatch, and the only other person that could rival his success as a personality when he enters a team it gets better is actually Internet Hulk. And now you have to question, obviously there are surrounding circumstances, and now he's the coach of Liquid, but for him he needs to prove that he can do it with another team that he didn't do. And I expect him to bring a lot of Koreans over now for the new Team Liquid lineup. So if Team Liquid actually has an OWL spot, expect it to be a majority Korean team.
It's Tattoo will bring a Korean with it.
I mean, if you're actually following Liquid through League of Legends, you actually have huge criticism on their management, but they're actually bringing a lot of people, and most notably Koreans. And I can see Liquid going over such management as well on Overwatch, trying to bring every player they want. Like, they got the investment from Disney. On League of Legends, you can see people like, I don't really remember which, Mikey from the Africa Blue. I don't remember on the LCK, but yeah, they're bringing huge players on the paper, and they're doing a LK with 8 players on the roster, etc. So if they actually involve themselves on Overwatch League, yeah, you're totally right on that. I can see them importing Koreans, doing an Immortals, basically an Immortals, and trying to invest on whatever they want.
Guess who built that roster? Right.
What?
Yeah. It's pretty much an open secret that they took consultancy from
True.
Internet Talk. So
I mean, we're gonna see anyway, or it develops. That's all it is, and Holy Liquids won't
in the end, we can say that Internet Hulk wins, no matter who wins.
Yeah.
Oh god, that was terrible. Okay. So I guess this has been going for 1 hour 40 minutes at this point.
Yeah.
And I guess we should slowly wrap up, unless you guys have any other topics you want to talk about. Any takers?
I vote for USA because I want some job on Overwatch League. So USA.
By the way, you can't weasel out of this. I know you have a hard time committing, but do you have a final score or a prediction for tomorrow, Karl?
Me?
Yes.
I can tell you that I expect to see at least 6 games, basically.
Okay.
So the score would probably be 4-2, and based on past results, I would give it to Kongju Panthera, because they were the one team that won convincingly against the now established roster of Lunatic High. But again, because there's so many variables right now, maybe and because Lunatic High, each time they lost to someone, they went back and won over him. It's really not. It could be 4-2 for Lunatic High. Also, for me, it really depends on which is the control map. So the control map sets the pace almost for everything. Because if Kongju Panthera wins the control map, then it forces Lunatic High to pick the first hybrid. And from then on, you have I pick this map, you pick this map, I win on this map, you win on this map, and it's a bit of this kind of game. So
yeah, okay.
I don't know. By the way, Daemon, do you think that teams in Apex should vote? They should have a pick ban process for the control in the first run, or should it be randomized?
I mean, this is really hard to say, because as we saw, Blizzard wanted to test a lot of things through banning phase, the way of things were going. The only thing is Apex sticking to their thing. I don't really know, to be honest. Even if it's not that deep, I like drafts, most notably coming from League of Legends, and map draft was kind of a thing I liked. But I don't really know. I like how Apex is handling their things, and I think it should change at the moment.
Okay.
Okay. So I guess let's wrap up. Demon, how much do you know about boats or ships?
Boats?
Boats.
What? I don't
Do you
know.
have any interest in boats whatsoever?
I don't think so.
So let me educate you on boats. Right?
Okay.
So there is a German from the Second World War. There's a German capital ship called the Gneisenau, and the history is as such, like, it was built in I guess it hit water in 36, and then it fought a bunch between Germany and France, and it actually also sunk like an aircraft carrier, right? And then they had to repair it, and during the repair time, the British bombed the Gneisenau, and it had to get like reinstated, so repaired. And what they did, they were like, okay, this ship is, they were destroyed it, so we might as well upgrade it, right? Give it bigger guns. So they put actually 38 centimeter guns on it, and it was ridiculous, and it continued to be a huge factor in the war, right? So it eventually was, I think it was never destroyed, but was just, taken apart. So now you can hit the link I sent you.
Okay.
And let's see if this works.
I got it.
What?
I need to wait.
No.
I need to download something. Yeah. Okay. This is good.
Why can I not?
Wait. Presentation hasn't started yet.
Yes.
Okay, you need to begin it, right?
Yeah. Sadly, it doesn't work. You have to manually click next. So when I say next, you do next, because usually it works that you can manually do it, but yeah, apparently it doesn't work here. So I guess can you start the first presentation? Do you see the first picture?
I can see it. It say like the presentation hasn't started.
Oh, okay. So let me actually check.
You will automatically follow the presentation.
Sure.
Oh, something is working on the 2 people.
Wait, let me.
So I suppose me and.
Let me send this to you in Discord, right? Because if I open Skype, it unaligns the windows, and that sucks. So can you use this one? Otherwise, I'll just do it on stream, and then it will be fine either way. So
yeah, do it on stream. Like, why?
Okay. So this is the Gneisenau with the upgraded guns, right? And you can see, like, it's just such a huge ship, right? Just compare it to this little one here, like how like miserable it is, right, in comparison. And obviously these has already the upgraded guns, right? Are you cringing off the planet of the earth? Come on, we gotta get through this. So who's the captain of
I know where this is going.
Caracol, who's the captain of this ship? Who do you think is the captain? Yes?
The actual captain, or like the team captain?
Birdring, mate. It's Birdring.
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 Yeah.
Birdring.
Basically, the moment you said, the moment you read the history.
Did you see the sick animation I did there?
Yeah, that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I was surprised by it. I love our this.
So obviously,
but this is really good.
Captain Birdring is going to steer that ship, and you know the ship I was talking about earlier.
Yeah.
It's actually Lunatic High. So Birdring is obviously going to Gneisenau.
What is the history of the ship? The actual history, the actual end of the ship.
The actual name?
The actual end. The end of the ship.
Oh, 51. So KDP has 6 more years to go after the war.
Yeah.
So
the moment you said that this ship was destroyed by the English, aircrafts and such stuff, it was like Apex Season 2.
Exactly. This is how deep my allergies go. So obviously, 29th of July, the date boat memes entered public consciousness. This will, like, KDP. I predict KDP will win 4-2 tomorrow, and obviously the entire Overwatch community will have to kiss the ring. Like we expressed with the, sometimes one analogy of the Lord of the Bird Rings is enough. Sometimes you need both, right? So,
Sometimes you need both.
got that
It was
over
kind
with.
of original. It was kind of original. I can take the prediction.
Only like 6 points out of the 10 points on the cringe scale.
No, that was good.
has, has to happen. Okay, do you have
It
anything?
depends.
Do you have anything to say towards the viewers or anyone watching? Do you want to,
Yeah, like Twitter accounts and stuff.
I mean, thank you again for inviting me to this. It was really good, a nice experience. I want to thank, obviously, everyone that did see this far and supported the team. Moreover, I want to thank as well, obviously, everyone in Movistar Riders, the players, for everything they did for me. And that's pretty much it. I hope to see everyone in Overwatch League and go furthermore in Overwatch. But yeah, thank you again for this. It was really good.
All right. Anything to add, Karel?
Nope.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Then
Thank you.
we'll close episode 12 of Overrated, and we'll see you hopefully next time with an Apex champion that isn't Eska. See ya.